Hope everybody's awake. Alex Barth, Cerrone Battle, Ryan Garvin behind the glass with you here on a pre-free agency edition, a daylight savings edition of sports. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a tough. I'm not a morning person.
No, not at all. Same
so
here.
I'm like, this is gonna be the toughest show. But it's like, it's the free agency preview. We got to deliver. So hopefully deliver we will here over the next 2 hours. Frankly, it's a free agency preview. We have a lot to get to in terms of what just happened.
Yeah.
Over the last week, a very busy week. So we'll do all of that. First hour, we'll look at some of the moves the Patriots and other teams in the league made this week, some of the news we heard this week. And then in the second hour, we'll look more ahead to the upcoming free agency. You want to join us for all of it, 617-779-0985 is the phone number. But before we can start talking about additions, Cerrone, we have to talk about subtractions. Two big ones this week for the Patriots. Stephon Diggs released earlier this week, a move that was not, I don't want to say it was expected, but it wasn't a surprise either. It was something that we certainly knew was on the table. Maybe a little more surprising, Garrett Bradbury, the center who the Patriots signed last year. I thought a pretty good year, was a key leadership part of that team. He was traded on Friday night to the Chicago Bears for a 5th-round pick. Let's start with Diggs. I guess let's just start there as we get into our Restoring the Roster segment. Restoring the Roster is brought to you by Blue Sky Restoration Contractors. If you're experiencing property damage from ice dams, roof leaks, or burst pipes, our guys at Blue Sky are ready to respond 24/7. So visit goblusky.com. No E, blusky.com. Blue Sky Restoration, restoring your property and your life for a brighter tomorrow. Gotta take a few pieces off before you add him. Stephon Diggs, a big part of that. What was your reaction earlier this week when the Patriots elected to move on from him?
Like you said, it wasn't surprising. You kind of, I don't want to say expected it, but you knew everything was on the table when it came to Diggs. And then when the news came across, it was like, wow, they actually did it. And like everybody else's instant reaction immediately swung to Alec Pierce, A.J. Brown, or something else. And you're thinking, okay, they have a plan in mind. They have something they're trying to do. Not saying they're going to execute it, but they have a plan in mind at receiver, and they're going to go after one of these other guys. And, along with, his contract situation, age, he played through a knee, coming off a knee injury last season, but you kind of don't want to be the team that's stuck with the guy when the injuries kick up, when the guy loses a step. You kind of move on. We always gave Belichick credit for moving on guys right on time, moving on before a guy falls off the rails. But you don't want to be stuck with that guy paying the big money and all of a sudden he gets hurt or he's not the same player. So they obviously have a younger option in mind, a younger number one caliber player. Like I said, A.J. Brown, Alec Pierce. So it could be someone else, another trade maybe. Yeah. But that's like everybody else. My natural reaction immediately said, "Oh, they're going after Pierce. They're going to make a big play." Now, I thought there might have been a possibility that they can keep Diggs and add one of these other guys, but they're clearly going in a different direction. And I'm very curious to see what the plan is.
You mentioned another name in there. Was there somebody you had in mind, or did you just throw that in there?
Oh no, just another somebody out of the blue, like something unexpected. I didn't have anybody in mind, but this day and age, you never know when another trade might come across your phone that you did not see coming. Like, wait, what? Like for example, Moore going to Buffalo. I didn't see that at all. But not saying that type of move, but something really unexpected. But no, as of now, I think it's Alec Pierce or A.J. Brown, or maybe both. Who knows? So, do you think and this is just me guessing, right? They could have moved on from Diggs as early as probably right after the combine. Gave it a couple days. They had until the 15th, so they could have waited into free agency. And I know part of the report was that they wanted to do right by him and give him a full chance to find his next team, which good for them. Yeah. Good on them for doing that. But am I looking too much into it that Diggs gets released a day after we basically find out Alec Pierce is going to hit free agency? Because this was not expected. Yeah.
He was going to get tagged by the Colts, and this was going to be... And look, we still could get the Ronnie Stanley rug pull like we got last year. Remember that on Saturday night? I was working on the rundown. I was here because I think I did the Celtics or something Saturday afternoon, and I hung around a little bit, and I'm writing a whole rundown for us Saturday night about Ronnie Stanley and could this actually happen? And nope, here come the Ravens with the contract. So still a little over 24 hours, 28 hours, a little less, 28 hours minus 7 minutes for that to happen before he gets into the non-exclusive negotiating period. But am I looking too much into it that, oh, well, Pierce is available, or maybe it means there was more traction on A.J. Brown. Like, my thing on Diggs, up to this point, they hit that signing out of the park. I said it at the time. Diggs was always here for a good time, not a long time. He was a bridge. He was a high-end bridge option at that position. Came in, was a 1,000-yard receiver, helped with Drake May's development, was an important veteran voice in that room, not just at the position, but for the team as a whole. They get to the Super Bowl with him, but he's going to be 33. They move on. Yeah. They move on before they have to commit serious money to him. Awesome. Like, great job handling all of that. But you can't move on without a replacement. And I'd like to think they have a plan in mind, because you can't run it back without, after the season Drake May had, you can't run it back without upgrading at the position. That's doing a disservice to Drake May, among many others. But looking at the season Drake May just had, now, I've seen a lot of people talk about, well, Diggs was a good player. I do think there is a way to upgrade without having Diggs on the roster. I'm not ruling that out by any means. Yeah. And if it's A.J. Brown, or I know you mentioned both, we can get into that a little bit, but if it's A.J. Brown or Pierce on the outside, I do think there are some good slot receivers in this draft. Yes, you have to hit on the receiver. I know people are pulling their hair out hearing me say that. You can't count on them to hit on a receiver. I understand, but you also can't duck that either.
Exactly.
You have to keep. You're only going to have long-term success at that position if you hit on a draft pick. Alec Pierce may be a slight exception to that in some ways. It's rare somebody with his talent at his age hits the market, but I do think they can upgrade without him. But they have to have a plan to upgrade without him.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. You can't just avoid drafting a receiver because the fans think you can't draft receivers. And none of these guys had anything to do with the people who were drafting receivers for the past 20 years. It's a whole different group of guys in different situations, different, I think it's a different time as well. I think the way the college game is played and the way receivers is featured now, as opposed to 20 years ago when it was basically a running game. You either ran an option or you ran, the pro styles they did. But now I think there's more explosive receivers in college football than we've probably ever seen. But that being said, you can't not draft receivers because people think you can't get one. You can't get the right one. Kansas City Chiefs didn't get a quarterback for their entire existence. They get Pat Mahomes. You can't stop drafting quarterbacks. The Bills didn't have a quarterback since Jim Kelly. You have to keep going until you get your guy. I mean, it is what it is, but I think they're going to address even if they sign Pierce and A.J. Brown, I think they're still going to draft a receiver. They might even draft more than one, but I think they're still going to go after one of those guys. And I think it will, by the time it's said and done, I think the receiver position, I don't know how much better, but I think it will be in a better place come training camp than it was by the time, with the way it ended the season, if that makes sense. I just think they're going to address it. I think they're gonna get one of these guys. And with Alec Pierce, once I seen his video thanking Indianapolis, I said, "Oh, that man's gone. He's out of there." And it's with the amount of money out there, the opportunities to play with different quarterbacks. I understand him and Daniel Jones had a good relationship. He has to be thinking the same thing we're thinking. Man, my skill set with the Drake May, or maybe, I would take Buffalo. I would say take Buffalo off the table, but they just got their guy, DJ Moore. With some of these other quarterbacks, like, man, what could I do with them? What could I do with a chance to go to a Super Bowl, on a good team? I think he absolutely doesn't. Absolutely. I don't think he signs a new deal with Indy. I think he's gone, even if it's not the Patriots. I think he's out of there. But look, if he ends up on the Patriots, I think that's an upgrade. I think you've automatically upgraded that position. And again, in the draft, they're going to draft a guy and draft and develop. And we mentioned it last week. I think the book isn't closed on Kyle Williams. I don't think he just didn't play because he was bad. I think he didn't play because the other guys around him kind of they played above their level for most of the season. And it was like, hold on, let's stash this kid for a minute, because everybody else is playing good football. You got good chemistry with the quarterback. We're scoring 27 points a game. We're hitting deep balls downfield. We don't need him out there now, but the kid when he was called, though, and he got in the end zone. So he showed his big play ability, and I think he's going to be a big part of this offense as well. But I think if they're better in July than they were in December, that's an upgrade for this team. And I think that's where they're heading.
Most importantly, they'll be better for the long term.
Yes.
They'll be
You're not
better
doing this every year now.
For the next, 3 to 4 to 5 years around Drake May. And hopefully, and this is what appeals to me about Pierce, he's 25.
Yeah.
You're not talking about a 4-year contract with Alec Pierce. You're selling him on, and look, it probably will be a 4-year contract that he signs this year. Mm-hmm. You're selling him on, this is the next 8 to 10 years, right? Yeah. It's you and Drake, and this is the core. Mm-hmm. That's what you're trying to sell him on, and that's what you're open to build, and you'll move other pieces in around them here and there, in and out. But hey, we want you guys, and I'm just saying this in terms of roster building, not in terms of talent or skill set or anything. Like, this is Brady Edelman, right? That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Like this is what you guys are going to be, the duo, and it's going to run through you. And I think that's what you're trying to sell them on. That being said, Cerrone, let me ask you, all things considered, including the price of attaining these players, Alec Pierce or A.J. Brown, if you're in the room and you're trying to decide which way to go, who are you making the case for?
Pierce. I'm taking Pierce. And I know a lot of people looked at the fact he only had, 48 catches or whatever. With 40 less targets, he had the same exact yards and touchdown as A.J. Brown with 40 less targets.
And with absolutely nothing at quarterback. Here are the quarterbacks that Alec Pierce has had in his career with the Colts. Anthony Richardson has started 14 games. Gardner Minshew has started 13. Daniel Jones has started 11. Matt Ryan has started 11. Joe Flacco started 6. Sam Ehlinger started 3. Phillip Rivers started 3. Nick Foles started 2. And Riley Leonard started 1. And he still managed to produce.
Those are great quarterbacks if it's like 2016.
Barely. We're like 2006. I don't think Ryan was in the league yet. But on top of that, and just to something you mentioned before, and this is why the Patriots should be real players in my mind for Alec Pierce, he was asked in that Kay Adams interview, the quote that got all the noise was what you mentioned, I love Indy, but at this point I've earned the right to explore free agency, see what's out there. A couple questions later, she asks him, and I wrote about this on 98.5 The Sports Hub if people want to check it out, what he's looking for in his next team. He says, quote, definitely quarterback play and stability in a franchise winning culture. Things like that, I'd say, are probably the most important. Being in Indy, I played with a ton of different quarterbacks. I think they're on their way to figuring that out with Daniel Jones. I think I've understood the battles that come with not having that stability at quarterback. So I think as a free agent, that would be something that I would look into a lot. You're not going to find any more quarterback stability than down at one Patriots place. You're just not. So I'm with you. I would go Pierce. I think you're buying, you're paying more for potential than production, which I understand is scary. But I compare it to, it's the same thing as Milton Williams last year.
Yeah,
and like, I'll say it. At the time, Milton Williams, that was more than he was worth. They paid him more than he was worth. You don't hear anybody bringing it up now, nor should they, by the way. They nailed that because they put him in a situation that was going to play to his skill set, where he was going to be able to thrive. They bet on the fact that he was a young player on the upswing, and it totally benefited them. It's not easy to bet on potential like that, but, and again, if you're somebody that's worried about them drafting wide receivers because of the track history, like, This is just the Milton Williams signing, but on offense. That's what you're potentially looking at doing here.
Yeah, and I jokingly said, if you pay this guy $30 million a year, you're paying him $30 million to be on your team, and you're paying him another $30 million so he doesn't end up with Pat Mahomes. Like, I don't want to see this kid playing with, if you don't get this kid and he ends up going, maybe Buffalo does find some money and sign this kid, or he ends up with Lamar Jackson or something like that. And you're sitting there like, man, we just gave he goes to Denver, and now Bo Nix has his guy for the next, 10 years or so. Jaden Daniels, whoever. I don't want this guy ending up in another situation that's going to come back to haunt you. Every year you hit the playoffs or on that schedule. No, I think he's that good. I think he's that explosive. I think he opens things up for offense. You see some of the clips out there of him against Houston when he takes a double team down the middle of the field, And yes, it's a great play, great catch by him. But if you look at it closely, the entire middle of the field is wide open because they were all worried about him. Just having that kind of receiver on your team, it just opens things up for everybody else, and it makes the Kyle Williams look better. Your tight end situation, everything improves having a guy that a defense says, no, we got to double team this guy. We got to take him out to play downfield. And it just makes things so much easier for Drake May and the rest of that offense. And I think it just makes way too much sense on both sides for these two guys, for them two to come together in free agency.
And by the way, if you pay him $30 million a year, he might not even be one of the 10 highest paid receivers in football. In terms of AAV, there's 8 receivers making $30 million a year right now. That does not include George Pickens, who's on the franchise tag, who's probably going to get an extension. And you have a couple guys that are up for, their end of rookie year extensions. Or, towards the end of the rookie contract extension. So by the time it's all said and done, frankly, you fast forward a year from now, you give him $30 million, that might not be top 15.
Yeah.
Because the way the cap goes up. So it's just, nobody's ever complained about the money for a player that plays well. Outside of age, contracts don't really age bad, regardless of money, if the player's playing well. So, all right, we blew well past the first break there. I do want to talk about the Patriots' other big veteran. They moved on from Garrett Bradbury. We'll do that next here on Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff. It's Alex Barth and Cerrone Battle.
Stay tuned for more Sunday Kickoff on the Sports Hub.
This is Sean Grande.
starting center. And what a pickup by them. Was one of the worst centers in football in 2024. Gets released by the Vikings after being the starter there for 6 years. Patriots grab him after moving on from David Andrews, and he starts all 17 games. And, was he the best center in the league? No, but he played well. Anchored that offensive line at times, 2 rookies to his left. But Jared, and you heard it there from Morgan Moses, which I think a lot of people, because Morgan Moses is more vocal, I think a lot of people look to Morgan Moses as being like the veteran leader of the offensive line. He was a veteran leader of the offensive line, but anytime he was asked about that, I asked about it at the Super Bowl, he would go right to Garrett. Garrett, and so he was maybe at the front of the line. Other guys talked about it too, to make sure Bradbury got credit for his leadership in that role, and then obviously what he did on the field. But he's now going to Chicago. Patriots trade him for a 5th-round pick. Should clear the way, Cerrone. We had talked about this.
Yeah.
That, Jared Wilson, probably a center long-term. Elliott Wolf said as much last year after the draft. They get 1 year out of him at guard. Mixed results. But now guard becomes a bigger need. I think that's the way to do it. This is a good year for guards in both free agency and the draft. You keep Wilson at his natural position. This is one of those ones that Bradbury was an important player for them last year. Could they have gotten another year out of him? Maybe. But you're moving on a year too early instead of a year too late, and it just helps you get some other ducks in a row.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, we talked about this, and like everybody's basically been expecting Wilson to be the center and be Drake May's guy for years. And maybe it came sooner than we expected, but hey, there's no need to drag it out, and you're trying to get a chemistry going there with the quarterback and his center. Puts him back at his natural spot where he was a very good player in the SEC in that position. The whole Will Campbell thing, moving to guard, we can move off of that because I think he's going to be a tackle. Like you said, they can address it in the draft. Free agents are out there. Guys are getting released from around the league. A lot of names are starting to pop up. A lot of teams are changing, unexpected releases at that position. So there's depth there, and you can add another veteran at that side, and now you can have a veteran next to Will Campbell. What would Will Campbell look like with a guy with 10 years on him standing next to him as opposed to another rookie, and you're both trying to communicate? So you get another veteran, but you put him in a different spot on that offensive line. I think shoring up the offensive line and making that solid is just as important as getting Alec Pierce or A.J. Brown. But I understand the receiver position is very sexy. It gets all the news every year. The big play guys are the ones that everybody talks about. But you win the game in the trenches. Edge rushers, offensive linemen, that's where you dominate in the NFL. And I think they're going to address it on both sides of the ball. But yeah, we expect the Bradbury switch to happen. Just didn't think it would happen that fast, but they're moving on, and I think Wilson's going to be your guy, and we just going to see how it plays out. But I think their offensive line's heading in the right direction.
I will say this when it comes to left guard. I would like to see them sign somebody. I'd like to see them bring in a veteran.
Yeah, they've got absolutely.
This is going to be, and it's a good free agency class for that. And we've talked about some of the names. The ones you've heard a lot, Isaac Seumalo from Pittsburgh, who's a little bit older, and then David Edwards from Buffalo. I don't know if you saw, so it's not the same position, but the contracts tend to be similar for center and guard. The markets tend to be related. Connor McGovern gets a huge deal yesterday for Buffalo, around $12 million a year. This market is going to be nuts for interior offensive linemen. So maybe it ends up being somebody like Joel Bitonio or Dylan Parham, who's a little further down. This is a spot where I wouldn't mind them spending. I'm just telling you what I think is going to happen. Yeah. The reporting's been that they're going to address it through the draft. I don't know if they'd always expected to move on from Bradbury like this. I would like to see them add a veteran. And maybe you draft somebody on day 3 and he competes for that spot too. And maybe, he surprises up against whoever you sign. But I'd like to see them be involved in the guard market. But I do think, again, it's going to be pretty expensive to do that. Now, that being said, I don't need them. We'll see how free agency goes. I don't know that taking a guard at 31 overall is the right answer either.
No, I not at all.
So,
I'd rather free agent than that.
But you're going to have to get aggressive somewhere.
Yeah. What do you think about right tackle? How are you on that?
So
I mean, he's
it's a
old, another
need.
older player.
Yeah, it's a need. You got to get the next guy in the pipeline. Absolutely. It's a matter of you're not getting that guy in free agency. The idea of that position is that somebody you're going to run it back with Morgan Moses this year. So it's somebody who's not going to play at least to start the year. You're not going to plan on them playing to start the year. Maybe if Moses starts to regress, you make the stretch during the year. But it's probably not a free agent, right? Because most free agents at the youngest are 26, 27. So that guy sits a year. You're not capitalizing on that contract. That's going to be in the draft. Is there a path where free agency works out well enough that they can draft Blake Miller, the right tackle out of Clemson, who just kind of looks like a plug-and-play guy? And I don't even know if he'll be there at 31. But, the perfect path to me is they take care of receiver, edge. They either get Jalen Hawkins back or they sign a safety. They get a guard. If you check those 4 boxes in free agency, well, you can take Blake Miller at 31. And I don't love the idea of your top pick being a guy that's not necessarily counted on or not in a position to contribute immediately in this season. He might. But if you have that free agency class, I think you can get by with it.
Yeah.
So, if it's not him, Ihachinor from Arizona State, that's probably a trade down. You're not necessarily looking to trade up from 62 high enough to get him. After that, this draft drops off really steeply. You're looking at project players on day 3. Emil Wagner, Markel Bell, things like that. So maybe Caden Proctor falls. I've seen that. They need to get the guy. To me, it's kind of where that player fits in the puzzle is tough, and it might just be a project player on day 3, knowing full well that, okay, you might have to go back into the draft next year and find your right guard.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting situation, but I think you hit the nail on the head. I think free agency is going to dictate a lot of what's going to happen with this team in this draft and from first couple rounds of the draft, the AJ Brown situation. If they trade for him, do they have a pick at 31? Do they have that second round pick? I think the next week or so will absolutely dictate what happens with this team in the draft. And I think it's pretty fascinating. Not saying they have holes everywhere. It's not a bad football team, but I think they have needs. And I think they're 2 different things. I think you have needs, but I don't think it's a lot of major holes on this team. But like you said, you address key spots in free agency. If you're really that attractive, then you can go into the draft looking at projects down the line players as opposed to guys that you need to throw in right now. It's a great point by you, but it's going to be pretty fascinating next couple days.
All right, I see you guys lining up on the phones. We'll get your calls next here. It's Alex Barth and Cerrone Battle on Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
More Sunday Kickoff is on the way on the Sports Hub.
Pierce. I was wrong. I called a couple weeks ago, and I kind of scoffed at Cerrone mentioning him because I thought there was no way they were going to let him hit free agency. And look, these stupid things get done all the time in the NFL, and they're letting him hit free agency. But I do have some questions about him because, I don't know. They've talked about the root tree limitations and so forth, and that stuff really goes back to college with him. That was one of the concerns when he was coming out in 2022. And I think also the volume concerns, the same sort of thing that we were talking about with him in 2022 in the draft class. We all know the 47 catches number from the Colts, but going before that at Cincy, he never caught more than 52 balls for 884 yards. And he was the top target on a college that had an elite college quarterback with Desmond Ridder. Now, Ridder didn't turn into anything in the NFL, but he was good in college. And then I just wanted to, it's draft season. So, draft numbers for Alec Pierce, just to get, draft nerds like me fired up. 4.4, 140, 158 split, 40.5-inch vertical. Good numbers. I do wonder what you guys think about the volume and route tree concerns carrying over. That's been a concern for him for a while now. And then just, what a huge win on the Bradbury trade, right? Can we just – I want to give the front office proper credit because I thought he was going to be a cap casualty. And stroke of luck, 2 starting centers retire on the same day, and then a market's created, and man, they jumped on it and turned that into draft capital, which is that's huge. And then you were talking about the guard position. I 100% agree with you. Getting a veteran guard. I like Joel Bitonio. You kind of made the point in regard to Jedrick Wills this week on a different program, I think it was, that it's maybe the history isn't good. Who knows? But I also think this is a really good guard class on day 3. So, just a couple names for you. Billy Shrouts from Notre Dame, Jaden Roberts, Alabama, Jeremiah Wright from Auburn, Jalen Farmer from Kentucky, and lastly, Inez Cooper from Miami. I think Inez Cooper is probably a better target in round 6 to eventually replace Onwenu. But we've got so many ties to Miami throughout the scouting department. It just makes sense to get a guy like that later. And man, watch some highlights of that dude. He has some heavy hands. He just puts them out and puts linebackers on the ground. So anyway, I'll leave you off with that. Sorry, I know it's a lot. Have a good day, all right, guys?
Thanks for calling, Randy. I had Cooper in my first mock draft. Going back to the Alec Pierce stuff, though, and the concerns about the volume in the route tree. He's talked about working on improving his route tree, and I should say expanding his route tree and doing a little bit more. The thing to me with him is he's not, I think maybe it's, and I understand why, right? We watched Julian Edelman here and Wes Welker here, and even Troy Brown here going back for so many years, and think of that number one receiver being the high volume guy, right? And okay, the guy you pay the most money is going to get the most catches. I don't think it has to work that way.
Yeah.
Again, if you take and this is going to sound a little ridiculous at first, but just hang with me here. If you take the catches out of it and you just look at 1,000 yards, he's a 1,000-yard receiver, right? That's what Diggs did this year. He was their number one receiver, 6 touchdowns. You want to see that number go up a little bit, but that's not a bad number. He's doing it on less targets. He's a big play threat. If they sign him to be a 100-catch guy and they try to put him in that role, yeah, that would be a mistake. I don't think giving him, if he's going to get you, and again, he got 1,000 yards of bad quarterback play for half the season last year. And that's my point. You're not signing him to catch 100 balls. That's what they did with Diggs last year. Right, you're signing me at 1,000 yards. If he does it on 50 catches, so be it. Now, that being said, and this goes back to what we talked about before, you can't sign Alec Pierce and say, we're done here.
Yeah.
It's about then pairing him, and this, everybody taught Edelman. This is the kind of guy, he's the engine of the offense. Let's not forget that, and he wasn't a wide receiver, but you had Rob Gronkowski there. And part of the reason Edelman was able to have so much success underneath is teams had to stay honest over the top about Rob Gronkowski. And when they started to come down and take away Julian Edelman underneath, what that did for Gronk. So it's not to say Alec Pierce is Rob Gronkowski, but the idea is you're going to get Alec Pierce, and then whether it's in free agency, if you double dip. I've seen a lot of people bring up Wan'Dale Robinson's name for the Patriots. That didn't make a lot of sense to me as long as Diggs was on the roster. I'm much more willing to have that conversation now. So if it's pairing Alec Pierce with Wan'Dale Robinson, which might be a pipe dream, but I'll bring that up, or more likely you go to the draft and it's Casey Concepcion or Omar Cooper or Jeremy Bernard or Skylar Bell, one of these slot receivers, right? And like you pair Pierce with that guy, or maybe it's even Kyle Williams. I'd like to see them add somebody, but maybe it's Kyle Williams. Like that to me is the goal. And now, okay, you have your volume guy, and then Pierce is the big play threat. And the idea is they stress the defense in two different ways. And the defense is going to basically have to pick and choose week to week who they're going to deal with, who's going to be the primary dictator of coverage. That's the goal. So I'm
drive by drive.
Right. So I'm not. Would it be great if Alec Pierce could catch 100 passes a year? Yeah, certainly. But that's not the role you're signing him for, hopefully. And so I'm not, ideally he expands his route tree a little bit. And again, I'll compare it to Milt Williams last year. We were sitting here saying, yeah, Milt Williams was a great addition because he gets after the passer, but he can't really play the run. And then he got here and they developed him into a better run player. So maybe there's some growth there too. But I just think if he's averaging 20 yards a catch, which is what he's done the last two seasons, I'm underselling that. He averaged 22 yards a catch in 24, 21 last year. If he's at that number and he catches 50 passes,
you're explosive.
You're in great shape. But I think to have that happen, it's not about him. It's about getting that underneath guy. If they get the underneath guy to play off of him, they'll be fine.
And I had to look this up. I looked it up the other day. I just had to make sure. I don't want to get on air and be like, wait, where did you get that from? He's Mike Evans. Mike Evans is going to the Hall of Fame. He's only caught over 80 passes twice in his career. Mike Evans averages about 70 catches a season, 75 catches a season. And he is going to the Hall of Fame because he is a big play receiver.
And by the way, he never averaged, and some of his volume is a little higher because he was usually at least over 65. I think every year, outside of last year when he got hurt, his low was 67. But he never averaged more than 20 yards a catch like Pierce did.
Yeah, I mean, it's a style of player he is. There's other guys out there, guys probably in the Hall of Fame that weren't big volume guys that caught 100 and 120 passes. I mean, that wasn't really even a thing until like 2005 with a bunch of guys getting 100 catches. But I mean, he's a prototypical old school, big receiver, a downfield guy. And it opens things up for everybody else. And also, you mentioned the volume receivers. If they signed Likely at tight end or make another play at tight end, that's another spot, another level of the offense that you're going to have to worry about. If you got this guy taking double teams down the field, now your tight end position opens up. The slot positions opens up. Passes out of the backfield. Everything changes having a guy that's capable of getting 20 yards a catch that the defense has to worry about. And if I'd rather a guy give me 110 yards on Sunday, as opposed as a guy that's giving me 9 catches for 86 yards or something like that. It's a different way of beating a team. Both.
That's a complete offense. Is both. And we should add this too because we haven't talked about it. Part of it is the skill set between Alec Pierce and Drake May is such a certain fit. You're counting on Drake May elevating him too. That's part of it. Let's go to Patty in Agawam. Patty.
Hey, good morning, guys. How are we doing today?
Good.
All right, so I got kind of a weird hot take on A.J. Brown and a draft question.
Okay.
I think I don't think we're going to see anything happen with A.J. Brown until after June 1st, and I think if Philly can't find a trade partner for him, I think they're going to release him because I don't think they want him on the team. But odds are they probably do find a partner, whether it be the Patriots or a different team. But that's just strictly opinion-based. And do you guys think, Alex, you just brought it up, that if unless somebody that you just can't pass up falls to 31, do you think that they trade out? Because I really think that the value, the real sweet spot in this draft is the second and third round. They trade out of 31, fall to the second round, accumulate more assets, and they're able to move around the second and third round and accumulate a few different guys. And I'll take it off air, guys.
Thanks for the call, Patty. I mean, I think that they have a better chance of getting the deal this year than they did last year. Nobody wanted to trade up to 4 last year. Nobody wanted to pay that price. They have a better chance this year. It's just a matter of, again, if the plan is that's where you're getting your next tackle, you're not moving back and getting the tackle. Mm-hmm. If they're set on that, you probably have to pick a 31, even if it's reaching a little bit. if they're looking at maybe some of those day 2 edge guys and see them relatively similar to the guys expected to be there at the end of day 1, then yeah, you look at it. I don't see the Eagles releasing A.J. Brown. They're going to, they should get at least a second or a third, which is significant. The cap implications are the same.
Massive. It's like a $45 million cap.
But I think it's the same if they trade him.
Exactly.
So they'll take what they can get. I'm still not ruling out him just staying there too. I don't think they want him out of there. I think he wants out more than they want him out.
Yeah,
and I also think Howie Roseman's the kind of guy to win that game of chicken. Let's go to Deshaun in Virginia. Deshaun.
Hello, guys. How you guys doing?
Hey.
What's going on, man?
So with everything being said, and some of the stuff that you guys said, I actually agree with, but this is how I can see things playing out or whatever. This is how we attack things. I actually would try to go after Alex Pierce, and try to get him on the team. But as well, if the Eagles don't want to try to trade Brown right now, I will definitely try to go after him later in June. We could probably get double dip and get both of them. And also, I'll try to target Isaiah Likely. I think it's very possible they can make that stuff happen. So they can actually solidify the offense completely, all together, and they won't have to really worry about anything else. They can attack everything else they want to in the draft. Because everybody talk about the offensive line, but even Ernest Jones said it himself. I don't know if everybody seen the quote during that Super Bowl loss or whatever. He said they do if they could lock down and contain Drake May, because they knew Drake May was the offense, meaning that they didn't believe in anybody else on that offense. They believed that if Drake May could be contained and not do those heroic plays or whatever, they believe they could, lock down Patriots team, which they did in the Super Bowl. So everybody talk about the offensive line, but they have to get some pieces for people to be threatened by, because you get an outside offensive line, but if he's standing back there patting the ball, it's going to make him double clutch, and then he's getting strip sacked. And you look at the strip sack, he was getting strip sacked because he was double clutching the ball. You pull up, and you pull it back down. That's how he wind up and throw it. Strip sack. So you got to get some players, too. That's all I wanted to say.
Thanks for the call, Deshaun.
Great point. Yeah.
We might disagree on this road. I don't know that A.J. Brown and Alec Pierce work together.
Think they're the same?
Not that they're the same. I actually think there's more nuance to A.J. Brown's game at this point in his career than people give him credit for. But that's almost the problem, is that Brown can do more than Pierce can.
Yeah.
So Pierce is going to be at the X. And in theory, if they were to do that, A.J. Brown probably moves to the Z and kind of takes Diggs' role. And I actually think he'd be okay there. I think he'd be pretty good. But, and I've said this before when people call in, well, I don't want A.J. Brown. He's mad about his targets, and you don't want a guy like that in the room. And my response has been, well, if he comes here, he's not going to be mad about his targets because of what his role is going to be. But if you put him in, the volume of the targets, based on what was reported, wasn't always the issue in Philly.
Yeah, it was the offense,
kind of targets. He wanted the deep ball. Well, if you have Alec Pierce here, now A.J. Brown's not getting the deep ball. So now you're probably going to deal with him getting pissed off.
Yep.
So
That's a great point.
In Madden, would they work together? Yeah, it'd be awesome. If we have to live in reality, I don't think they work together. I don't. I think it's one or the other. If you're going to get a slot guy, get a real slot guy. Is where I'm at.
That's a great point you brought up, because I mentioned when I was comparing Pierce to A.J. Brown, a lot of people saying the whole issue was he didn't get targeted. He had 121 targets last year.
Right.
A.J. Brown got 121 targets. And like you said, it wasn't the targets. He was complaining about the offense in general and how they ran their offense.
They were making him catch and run underneath, which is if you sign if you sign Pierce and get him, that's exactly what he's going to be asked. There's where, to go back to Randy's point earlier, that's where all of a sudden the concern about route tree comes up. Yeah. He had A.J. Brown at his lowest depth of target last year, going back to the 2020 season, second lowest total of his career, 12.2, which is still not that low, but that was more his issue.
Yeah.
Right. So you're back in that issue. If you had both, you're back in that issue. And also, Isaiah Likely's in that role too.
That's
so
true.
Now you're again, it's not, I've said it a lot this week, the old Belichick idiom. It's not about collecting talent. It's about building a team. And the last 3 years objectively were about collecting talent because they had none. Now that you started to put players in place, because they just need to add good players. Now it's more about who fits where in the puzzle. Let's go to John in Franklin. John.
Hey, what's up, guys? Good morning.
Morning.
Hey, I don't know. I think what you guys said earlier was a good point about guard. I think they need to get a veteran guard in there, put him next to Campbell, and then they can draft one in the draft to let him, learn behind a veteran guard. And then the other point about Diggs, I don't know. I wish they kept Diggs. He had a good relationship with May. He knew the offense. Now you got to worry about someone else coming in knowing the offense. But they must know something. I don't know. But that was my take. I'd like to see what you guys think. Thank you.
Thanks for the call, John. Look, it's a tough cut. It's not an easy cut. And I don't, there's a case both ways. We're going to see if they don't make another move at receiver, or let's say like A.J. Brown or Alec Pierce comes in here isn't good. Yeah, that's going to be the big second guess all season. Alec Pierce comes here and balls out, they're going to look brilliant, right? All right, well, they moved on from Diggs when they need to move on from Diggs, and now they upgrade at receiver. So the story of the Diggs release is not written yet, and I know we have to do a show today. I'm not saying you have to wait until the end of next season to judge it. But I do think that story's incomplete until we see who they bring in at that position this week. And if they bring in nobody, then we'll rip them. Because that would be, you can't do that. You can't be doing that. But like if they go out and at 12:30 tomorrow they have Alec Pierce, it's, again, the Diggs release looks very different depending on what they do tomorrow. One more before we hit the break here. Tony in Canada has been holding on very patiently. Tony.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Yeah, I was calling about Diggs. I was disappointed when I heard they released him. I was thinking Diggs would be able to slot into the number 2 role, and they could go after A.J. Brown or Pierce as a number 1 deep threat. And what I heard is that a lot of people speculating that the Patriots released him because they didn't think that Diggs would be able to repeat his season. But the more I think about it, the more I'm thinking that maybe the Pats were thinking the same way about their own season, that they wouldn't probably be repeating the season, and they're still on the slow rebuild, and so they're building over the next 2 or 3 years. That's the only theory I can have, because it makes no sense to release Diggs to me unless there was some other legal issues or something like that going on. Even if they do get a number 1 wide receiver, I still think they should have kept Diggs. So I was disappointed to hear that, and I'll listen to the show. Go Pats.
Thanks for the call, Tony. Again, it's tough. Like, he became a fan favorite here. He was a favorite inside the locker room. The idea is, to Tony's point, it's not so much they don't believe they can repeat last season, but they're trying to get younger. They want to get younger. I said this earlier, like if you get a guy like Alec Pierce, you've now built this core around Drake May. So, getting younger at the position, if they get Alec Pierce, they draft a slot receiver. Well, now you have 2 guys that are going to grow with Drake May over the long term. And I think that's ultimately the goal. All right.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Real quick.
So real quick. Yeah. Thinking of young core, you drafted the quarterback. You got the big play running back. You got your left tackle. You got your center. Hopefully they get themselves a young tight end. But you add Pearson there, you have your young core on offense to go with the with outstanding defense that you already have. So, you're right. It's all about getting younger and not becoming what we all said Washington Commanders last year, where they had success, but they ended up getting old overnight, and it ended up costing them along with the quarterback getting hurt. But you don't want to be in that situation. So I think the youth movement is still ongoing with this team.
All right, we got to hit the break. When we come back, let's look ahead. We already talked about some receivers, but how about some other positions in need, particularly edge? And I do want to address the big move that set the market for that need that happened over the weekend. We will get to that and more coming up on Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
More Sunday Kickoff coming up on the Sports Hub. Tune in to
Let everybody know if you want to follow all the moves tomorrow. Go to 985thesportshub.com/offseason for the latest on the Patriots and NFL free agency. Myself and Matt Dolph will have all the signings and rumors. The free agent tracker is back. Dolph has that set to go. I believe that goes live at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. Find it all at 985thesportshub.com/offseason. Edge. Big need for the Patriots. It's kind of sounded like it's the biggest need for the Patriots this offseason, how they view it internally. I never thought they were, really going to be in on Max Crosby. Now, I'm surprised how much Max Crosby went for. The 2 firsts. So the report was they wanted the Micah Parsons package, which is 2 firsts and a player. I figured coming down from that meant a first and a player, not 2 firsts. Ravens really trying to capitalize on Lamar Jackson. One of those picks, the pick this year is 14th overall. I just don't think the Patriots realistically were going to be able to match that. No. So I wouldn't call this a miss for them. I don't know how you feel, but it sets the market. People, the edge market's going to be expensive now if that's the cost to get somebody on the trade market.
Yeah, I mean, it's they couldn't match it. And with the Ravens, I think people have to understand that we look at the Ravens as we just look at the uniform and say that's an elite, dominant defense. The Ravens were, I want to say, 29th in sacks, and they were 30th against the pass. They were one of the worst pass defenses in the league last year. So to get a guy like that, they had to be desperate. They had to give up a lot to get to just to be a good defense when it comes to getting after the quarterback and stopping the pass. They need him to just be a decent defense in that division. And I think he's gonna provide. It's gonna be a big help. Now the rest of the guys have to stay healthy along the way. Along with Lamar Jackson, they have a new coaching situation, so we're not sure how that's gonna play out. But they were very desperate, and they need a guy like that. They need to make a big splash. And like to your point, they have to capitalize on Lamar Jackson now while he's what we think is still in the prime of his career. But they were 30th against the pass, and I want to say 29th in sacks. One of the teams at the bottom. So they need a guy like that on that roster. But I think edge is the hot position. It has been, I think, since the Parsons deal went down. You see Max Crosby being gone. The Chargers, they're still going to keep Khalil Mack around, but you have a deep edge class this year in the draft. So I think the Patriots need to address it there. If not, you're going to be giving up your whole draft to get a good edge rusher, and I don't think it's worth it. Go out there and draft your own Max Crosby, find your own Khalil Mack, and build around that to go with the young core that you already have in place.
And it is deep in free agency, too. To me, there's first of all, there's the Caleb Chase-on of it all. And you bring him back, and I think he sits on sort of similar standing to some of these guys. I think some of these guys are better players, but then it's how much do you value the familiarity of it. Trey Hendrickson, to me, is sort of in his own group because of his age. I think talent level, the names at the top are Trey Hendrickson, Odafe Oweh, Jalen Phillips, and Boye Mafe. Those are the 4 guys you're really looking at, to me, as big impact signings at edge. The difference between Hendrickson and the others is all those guys are 26, 27. Hendrickson's 31. So you're talking about, any of those other guys, Oweh, Phillips, Mafe, you're probably looking at a 4-year contract, I would think. Hendrickson's going to be a 1, maybe a 2-year deal. Frankly, with Trey Hendrickson, it's kind of just what you just did with Stephon Diggs, but on defense.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
If you sign him, you're going to give him, short years, big money, come for 1 or 2 years, probably 1, and just give us a bridge until we can get that next guy. I wouldn't be opposed to that because I do think he is a step above when healthy Odafe Oweh, Jalen Phillips, and Boye Mafe for 2026. Now, if you're looking at the long term, there is something to be said for you get one of those guys, you lock him in on a 4-year deal, and you're going to, continue to build your defense around that guy with Milton Williams and Christian Gonzalez. Like, that's going to be part of the plan. So they've been linked to Trey Hendrickson more than I thought they would be. So that gets your antennas up. I still wonder if they want the younger guy and they ultimately want the long term. But the plus for Hendrickson, too, is that contract's not going to overlap with the extensions of Drake May and Christian Gonzalez. He's going to be off the books. But the Christian Gonzalez extension doesn't kick in when you sign it. It doesn't kick in until next spring. So, sign Hendrickson, and then maybe I still think either way they're going to draft an edge in the top 100, regardless of who they sign.
That's my next question for you.
If it's Hendrickson and maybe a first-round pick, whereas if you sign a guy like Boye Mafe and then draft somebody in the third round to be more the complementary player to him, maybe that's more the plan. But I'm not ruling out Hendrickson entirely. If it's one of the younger guys, I like Boye Mafe the best. I think he has the highest ceiling of the three. And I don't think any of them have the floor. I mean, they're all good players, but I don't look at any of them where it's like, well, even if he doesn't get any better, man, if you just get him in here right now, like, I don't think any of them are that good. Where I look at what Boye Mafe can do, I think he was held back by his usage in Seattle. I don't think the Seahawks ever found the right role for him. I think the Patriots, especially on defense, have done a really good job of that with players this past, did a good job of that this past season. So I like Mafe the best. Wouldn't turn my nose up at any of them. I think they'd all be solid signings, but that's where I'm at with the edge class. I have another take to build on that, but Cerrone, just to you, Hendrickson, Owe, Phillips, Mafe, is there anybody out of that group that you feel strongly about?
Hendricks is number one for me. I think the same, like you said, you bring him in for a year or two. I think this season, 2026 season, it makes you a defense elite, and you're trying to capitalize on where you were last year. I think you bring him in, but I still think you take one at 31. I still think you get one of these explosive edge guys. You don't want to miss out on this class of dominant edge rushers. Then you come the next year and it's not the same thing, or a year after, and you're trying to find that young edge guy to replace him or to play alongside of him, whatever, on the opposite side. Excuse me. But I think you double dip. I think if you get Hendricks, you still go out and get that guy at 31, and now you have a explosive defensive line. And you can win a lot of games just having that. Everyone's saying, the schedule is tougher. You play better offenses. Yeah, give me a better defensive line to go along with that as well for this season and possibly next. But I think you double up on them. But the question I was going to ask you, could they possibly double up in free agency? Could they get one of the top end guys and then get somebody like a Bradley Chubb or something like that? You know, not a top 5 edge guy, but a top 10 guy that's available to go along with Hendricks.
So that's exactly where I wanted to go. And look, if they sign like Hendrickson or one of those guys, I'm not ruling out an edge at 31, but it gives you some other options, maybe drafting that tackle. I would like to see them sign 2 guys, and then here's kind of the groups that you can sign from, and there's pros and cons from all of it. There is we're going to sign a veteran who's probably past the best of his career, but he's just going to play on third down, 3rd and 6 or longer and rush the passer, and that's it. And that would be Joey Bosa, Jadeveon Clowney. I still can't picture Cameron Jordan anywhere but the Saints, but you want to throw him in there?
Weird. Yeah.
Sure. And I would have put Khalil Mack in that group before he re-signed with the Chargers. But Bosa, Clowney, Cameron Jordan. Maybe not the most exciting group, but that's an option. Then there's we're going to try to find this year's Kayvon Chason. So remember, Kayvon Chason was a first-round pick. Never really found out. Patriots signed him for next to nothing, developed him, and he worked his way into being a good starting player. The one name that really stands out to me is Arnold Ebiketie, who was with the Falcons. He was a second-round pick of theirs, a guy that I think really fits their mold, a guy that, again, like Mafe, I don't think was in the best situation. Maybe there's more untapped potential there. Kwity Paye's another one. He was with the Colts. He's not as much of a stylistic fit, but I think is a name to know. And objectively, because he fits the description, I don't know if they'd realistically sign him. But if we're talking about guys who were drafted high, who were never put in a position to succeed, have underwhelmed, and are now free agents, Josh Uche does fit that description. I don't know that they'd sign him, and I'd honestly probably rather have Arnold Ebiketie. But if I'm giving you the names that are out there, he's a name that's out there. And then there's just the former Titans club, which is Draymond Jones and Arden Key. And do they just go back to the well and the familiarity and all that? So I don't know if any of those names stand out to you. One more for the younger players, too, would be Malcolm Kuntz. Again, maybe not a great scheme fit, but just a name I missed there going back through my notes.
Yep.
I like the idea of trying to find the next Kayvon Chason. I think Arnold Ebiketie is a second edge signing. I don't know about him being the guy, but is a secondary edge setter, or edge defender. He's not really an edge setter. He's more of an aggressive attack the quarterback guy, I think would make sense.
Yeah, and do you think, with the situation with Barmore, you think they're still looking at D-tackle? Do you think they still address D-tackle in either free agency or the draft? Do you still think that's a position of need, or just for depth? Tonga is available as well, free agent now, whatever. But do you see them adding depth at D-tackle as well and just really going all in and building depth on that D-line in general?
Yeah, I mean, if Tonga leaves, you got to get it. Now, nose tackle, I think you can get in the draft. This is a good nose tackle draft. Now, some of that's in the top 100 if you want to really attack it, but you always want to be getting better up front. You always want to be getting better up front. I wouldn't be surprised if they sign a nose tackle, relatively early if they don't get Tonga. Speaking of those internal free agents, I want to go back through that list. I think we did this when the season ended and went through and who's going to stay and who's going to go, but it might be time to refresh it. So let's go back through that next here on Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff. It's Alex Barth and Cerrone Battle.
Stay tuned for more Sunday Kickoff on the Sports Hub.
Tune into the next Celtics broadcast to find out.
with Kayvon Chason, who's probably their biggest name free agent. I think edge guys are going to get paid. This could be a player's market in that regard. He's comparable to some of not the top names, but some of the upper names on the market in free agency. Plays a different style. Some of those guys are better against the run, but maybe not the true speed rusher he is. He does have the familiarity angle. Do you think they bring Kayvon Chason back, or do you think they pivot at the position?
I think they'd want to have him back. I think it's all up to him now. It's all about if he's, if he gets the bag somewhere else. I mean, he gets paid like a top guy. I think he's gone, but I think he's going to go out there and see what's available. But I think I wouldn't say the best option. I think a good option for him is to stay. He came on big late as the season went on. It's like the better he got. So I would love to see him coming in with a full season, knowing that he's the man on the other side, opposite of whatever they do in the draft or whatever. But knowing that he's their guy now, their edge rusher, I would love to know what his numbers would look like and his production and confidence would look like with a full off season, knowing that he's a solid player on this team and has a solid role, as opposed to working his way up to what he became last year. So, I think another team is going to pay him though, but I would love to see him around.
Yeah, I think he's a guy that it definitely wouldn't be bad for them to bring him back, but I think he's gone. I think they're going to pivot, and they got the 1 year out of him, and they're going to move on. How about Jalen Hawkins? Gave them good play at safety next to Craig Woodson. This is definitely, if you're a free agent, this is definitely a tough safety market. There's a ton of safeties available in free agency, a ton in the draft. Yeah. Not a lot of reason to go out of your way to pay a safety. Does he re-sign before noon tomorrow? I don't know. Does he come back? Like, I kind of think he does. And then they're just going to add a third safety so they can be more multiple there.
I agree with you on that. I think he does come back, but I still think they address it. I still think they draft one. I don't know where in the draft, but I still think they come away with one of these guys. But like you said, it's tough out there for a safety. So I think it's a bad year for him to become a free agent. I think he's better off sticking around, and not saying a hometown discount or anything like that. But I think he's in a good spot. You're in a safe position here. I think he finds a way to hang around and they keep him around.
Khyiris Tonga. This is a tough one because at the end of the season, it seemed like a no-brainer. First of all, it's a defensive tackle. It's a non-premium position. Had a great year, seemed to fit in well, had a ton of roles for him. Sounded like he wanted to be back, but then we get the reporting out of the combine that, his market had blown up. They were struggling to get an extension. I'm not surprised his market blows up. Teams are pivoting back towards those big nose tackle now. Now, those big nose tackles now, as we're seeing more 12 tight end, 12 personnel, we're seeing more use of the fullback, things like that. The cycle's kind of coming back around in terms of getting bigger on defense. I think Tonga's gone. I think he's going to get more money than people expect. I think he is headed elsewhere.
Yeah, I think he's gone. I think he's going to go to one of these teams that have just been really terrible on defense, like Cincinnati or some of these other programs out there. I think he's gone, and it's a great point by you, but by the game kind of coming around again, you're seeing running backs being dominant guys again. Super Bowl MVPs running back, MVP caliber running backs again, guys getting big numbers, a lot of carries. The Derrick Henrys are still out there doing their thing. The hybrid safeties back, the big play safeties, middle linebackers again are going to be a name, fullbacks. You're going to need a guy like Tonga, and I think some of these really bad defenses are going to pick up a guy like Tonga. The Baltimore Ravens can use a guy like Tonga, just having another guy on that D-line. So I think after what the performance of a lot of these guys that they had in the playoffs, where everybody got a chance to see them, I think is going to get some of these guys paid, and I believe Tonga's one of them. So I believe he's gone.
Let's go over to the offensive side of the ball. Austin Hooper.
I think he's gone. I think they're going to address tight end either through free agency or the draft or both. And I think Henry's safe, but I think Hooper's gone. I think they're going to replace him with a younger, faster guy. And he's been a good player, but I think it's time to move on from him.
I've had this weird take that he's going to sign a 1 year minimum money deal in June and just be back in camp with them as the fourth tight end.
Yeah,
but
just hang around.
Short of that, and I don't know if he'll make the team, but no, I think they're going to add multiple tight ends. That's a position I think they know they need to get younger at. They know they need to get more athletic at. They know they need to be able to block with. So I think that I don't think they're cutting Hunter Henry. I've seen some people bring that up. Hunter Henry's still going to be here. I think they start reworking it around him and prepare for what it's going to look like. Because this could, I don't think they're going to move on from this year. After this year, I think it's up in the air.
Yeah.
So I think they start preparing for life without him. And then finally, I group these guys together because I think it's similar situations. Vidarian Lowe and Thayer Munford. I think they're both gone. I don't think people are ready for how much money Vidarian Lowe is going to get. I think he might get $8 to $10 million a year. Ryan's like exploding his head back there.
I don't get it.
I can explain it to you.
I don't get it.
I can explain it to you. There's not enough tackles.
Yep.
There's not enough tackles, and he's a solid backup left tackle, which the Patriots will need, by the way, when he moves on. So Jalen Moore last year had been a backup tackle for the Niners for the first 4 years of his career. He started a total of 12 games over his first 4 years and was fine. Played fine. He never started more than 5 games in a year. The Chiefs gave him a 2-year, $30 million contract. And then, with one tackle already on the roster, and then drafted another tackle in the first round. They gave Jawan Taylor 2 years, $30 million to be a backup. I don't know that Vidarian Lowe gets that. I don't think he gets 15 per.
But 8, 9,
8 to 10, I would not be surprised. There are not enough tackles. Teams are desperate for backup tackles. I think Vidarian Lowe gets paid somewhere, and the Patriots will have to find a new backup left tackle. Maybe Thayer Munford stays, but I mean he's not going to get 8 to 10, but he'll have a market too because again, there's not enough tackles. And
last year, Will Campbell went down. Did Vidarian Lowe give up a sack?
He had like a okay couple games, and I think the last game he struggled. I'll find it.
He performed a lot better than me and other people expected him to perform, but the bar was so low.
He was in a better, supported in a better way.
And he has long arms.
The odyssey of his career is just what is so.
He allowed 1 sack, 15 pressures, was penalized once.
Yeah. And in today's NFL, somebody say, I can work with that.
Right.
they'll pay him.
Makings of a Pro Bowl tackle in you.
He's going to get some money. I don't think people are ready for it. He's going to get some money. Let's grab a quick call here before we hit the break. Dean in Shrewsbury wants to go back to the wide receiver conversation. Dean.
Assuming A.J. Brown goes for a second and a third, would you rather have Alec Pierce or A.J. Brown? I think I would take Alec Pierce because of age and upside.
Second and a third?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll take Alec Pierce there. I'm with you. Age and upside.
Yeah. It's
Thank you.
Let me flip it back to you, Dean. What if it's just a second? And then like a day 3 nothing pick?
A.J. Brown.
Okay. That's thanks for the call. That's the tipping point for me. I'm not giving up 2 top 100 picks for A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
I think that's where I'm drawing the line. And if the Eagles don't want to make that now, here's where it changes. Let's say Alec Pierce signs somewhere else.
That's a good point.
Now you kind of have to.
You're kind of desperate.
Right? And the Eagles will know that. And now their ask is going to go up.
Yeah, Alec Pierce is the key to this whole thing.
Right. You got to, if you think A.J. Brown's the guy, you got to make the deal. Because as soon as Alec Pierce comes off the market, A.J. Brown's price goes up.
Yep.
But if you think Alec Pierce, and all the more reason, like if you think Alec Pierce is the guy, get it done. To me, like 30s probably into the 30s is probably my ceiling. I guess I wouldn't go above 31 for him. But I read this off before, Cerrone, and Matt Dolph wrote about this a little bit on 985thesportshub.com if you want to check it out. There are 8 wide receivers making $30 million or more a year in the NFL right now. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, DK Metcalf, Garrett Wilson, A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk's going to get cut, but that contract they'll still be paying that contract. So does he belong in that? Let's start with the A.J. Brown, the Amon-Ra St. Brown, because that's just above 30. It's literally 30, and then the next number is 2,000, so not even 200,000. Does he belong in that class, Alec Pierce? No, he does not.
Yeah, he's not Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Right.
No.
But after that, the next biggest contracts, there's another group of 6 players making 7 players making between 25 and 30. Terry McLaurin's making 29. T. Higgins and Jalen Waddle are both in the 28 range. DJ Moore's at 27.5.
Yeah.
George Pickens is in year 27. That's going to change. He's going to get an extension. He's probably going to join that $30 million a year group.
Yeah.
And then Jameson Williams at 26.6, Devontae Smith at 25. I look at Jameson Williams and T. Higgins, who recently signed those extensions, similar age. They're both more big play than volume players. That's the comp to me. And then you factor in the cap went up more than people expected. Those deals are not signed under this cap. T. Higgins was at 28.7. And that's for Pierce, that's what I'm asking for. If I'm the team, I'm using more of that Jameson Williams 26.6 deal because he's not as much a volume player. So you're probably looking at, 27, 28, 29 million. I think is the range for Alec Pierce. I would go to 30 if it gets it done. Again, I think that's more than fair. The odds are by this time next year, he won't be a top 15 highest paid receiver in football on that contract. And the cap's going to go up again. It's just like Milton Williams. They gave Milton Williams more than they probably should have last year. He was paid more than players who had proven to be better than him. Milton Williams right now is the second highest paid defense tackle in football in terms of AAV. He's getting 26 per. That feels fair.
Yeah.
Didn't feel fair at the time. Not saying they shouldn't have done it. It's the price doing business. It's like if Alec Pierce hits, and if you don't think he's going to hit, then don't sign him.
Yeah.
Like I'm making an assumption there, right? Mm-hmm. But I think it's fair to make in this case. If you think this signing's going to hit, and him and Drake May are going to make each other better because of the stylistic fit, I think you go to 29-30 to get it done.
Yeah, because if you come away with a receiver that, let's say he gets the boost of playing with Drake May and playing with a good team, a good offense, and now he's a 1,300-yard receiver or something like that with 10, 11 touchdowns, oh, yeah, his deal's going to look like a steal. I hate to cross sports here, but it's like when Jaylen Brown was offered $300 million, we were like, what? It's crazy. Now you look at it, it's like, oh, it's a steal. It's a good deal for MVP caliber player to make that kind of money. But it's if he becomes the player we think he's going to become and get better and grow again, what is he, 25, 26 years old, whatever it is?
Going into his age, I think he's 25 now, going into his age 26 season.
Yeah, if this kid explodes and hits his prime, along with Drake May, no one's going to care about the money. No one's going to pay attention to the money and the dollars. And if you're willing to pay like a Chris Godwin and Brandon Ayuk and Calvin Ridley that kind of money, right. He's that kind of player at this point of his career. He's that guy. And if he put up that production with those quarterbacks in that situation, they ran the ball a lot in Indy on top of that. So you put him in a different situation with this quarterback. He's worth $30 million to you, and that's all that matters. Yeah. And to that quarterback. And if you're not sure, you're on the fence, before you make a decision, bring Drake May in the office and say, hey, should we pay this guy $30 million to be a guy? And if your future says yes, that's the guy I want, you go out there and get him by any means necessary.
Also, yes, he turns 26 in May. We'll hit the break, come back. More free agency talk next here on Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
More Sunday Kickoff is on the way on the Sports Hub.
So adjust your schedules accordingly. We're still going to do the 8 o'clock start. We'll put the extra hour on the end. So we're going to be 8 to 11 next week, 3-hour edition of the program. Wrapping it up for agency. And as we have the extra hour, we'll probably start to dig in on some draft stuff too. Not really no draft talk today. A little bit of wide receivers, that was it. But, of course, that ramps up. Style next week will be the free agency recap. And the week after that, it really starts to get going. But, again, you want to join us here, 617-779-0985. Just kind of on the eve of free agency here, Cerrone.
Mm-hmm.
How do you view the Patriots standing in the league? And what I mean by that is a lot of people have talked about, you hear some people say, oh, there's no way they can repeat it, so they should just kind of, they shouldn't sacrifice for the future because they're still in the rebuild and this and that. Then you hear some people say the opposite. No, they absolutely, they need to put it all in for this year because they got so close. They need to get back right away and all that. It's a fascinating spot because to me, the AFC is still wide open. I filled in on the over-under show yesterday. Apparently, I didn't give enough odds. I apologize. It's not. Kendra does a great job. She'll be back. I was not expecting to fill her shoes, but one of the ones I did was we looked at the AFC odds, AFC winner odds after the Max Crosby trade. And I'm not somebody who looks at the odds as a forecaster. The job of the books is to make money off stupid people, not correct the future or not predict the future. So they're trying to position the odds where they're going to make money, not necessarily what they think is going to happen. Sometimes that might overlap. But, when you look at the AFC, their two favorites right now, I'm just on DraftKings, are the Bills and the Ravens at plus 500. Do you feel particularly great about either of those teams winning the AFC?
Both those teams just fired their coaches. No.
and with the Bills, we didn't really talk about the DJ Moore trade. What a horrible trade. What a terrible freaking trade the Bills made. That not only made them worse, hurt everybody else, because DJ Moore by no means was worth a second-round pick. I saw somebody put it out on Twitter this week. Older player, he's going to be 29. He's not old, but older, diminishing production, dealing with injuries, big contract. That's Deebo Samuel, who went for a fifth last year. Yeah. DJ Moore's worth no more than a fourth. He goes for a second. So now any shot of A.J. Brown going for a second goes out the window because the Eagles can't trade him for the same or less than what DJ Moore went for. So not only, I heard somebody defend it. I think it was tongue-in-cheek. Or I've heard a couple people in Buffalo say, well, now the Patriots can't get A.J. Brown. I'm not giving Brandon Beane that much credit. He made a bad trade. I don't think they're that much better. Like, maybe they get better, but that trade doesn't scare me. But anyway, sorry. Side tangent.
They're desperate.
They're very desperate. They're incredibly desperate.
Yeah.
And they can't afford A.J. Pierce or with, the meme of the kid who's upset, can't afford whatever. Guess you're getting this, buddy. The Bills, they didn't have A.J. Brown money. They didn't have Alec Pierce money. Guess you're getting DJ Moore. But the Bills are, as of today, the same or worse than they were last year. The Ravens are better, but like you said, first-year head coach. Can Lamar Jackson get over the hump? They're the favorites at plus 500. Then you have the Chiefs at plus 700. Who knows where Patrick Mahomes is going to be at?
I have no idea why they have the Chiefs so high. I cannot understand. And they just lost one of their better defenders.
Because I think there's a lot of people who, Chiefs plus 700. Patrick Mahomes is going to come back. What were the Celtics odds at this time last year?
But here's the thing.
Kind of play it off as that. Not saying that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But trying to play it off as that kind of thing so people will bet it.
But here's the thing, though. The Chiefs sucked before Mahomes hurt his knee. They were bad when he was healthy.
And they just lost maybe their best defensive player.
Yes, that's my point. They're losing pieces. And, if Mahomes could be healthy. He could come back. If he misses the first month of the season, come back in October or something like that, their season could be over by then. I mean, I don't understand why they have them. They have a good head coach. And if Mahomes is 100% healthy, they have a great elite quarterback. But outside of that, they have major holes. They have them. They need upgrades at running back. They need defense needs upgrades now that you're losing pieces. And they're counting on old guys. They're still counting on Kelsey. They're counting on Jones in the middle. They have a lot of old pieces, and they're good by name, but they weren't a good team before Mahomes. Their season was over before Mahomes got hurt. And it's just I don't understand that. And again, Ravens, Bills, they just fired their head coaches. 2 scrambling quarterbacks that could have been out for the season 6 different times last year. I mean, they have issues all over. No, I'm not buying into none of those other teams. And I know they don't have the Bengals as a Super Bowl favorite. But again, everybody's putting the Bengals as one of these elite teams.
There's one more team too, Cerrone, that has odds above the Patriots. You notice we haven't gotten to the Patriots yet. I'll just throw this in before you wrap it up. Bills and Ravens at plus 500. Chiefs at plus 700. The Chargers are at plus 750.
Come on now. What are we doing?
And then the
here?
Patriots at plus 800. Texans at plus 900. Broncos plus 1,000.
What are we doing here? What did the Chargers do since the last time we saw them play that says, you know what, they're better than the Patriots?
No, you've been big on this. We shouldn't make the AFC out to be this juggernaut before it. But here's a lot's going to change. This thing's still wide open.
It is.
This
Absolutely
thing is still the whole thing that the Patriots, because I think some people view this as the Patriots had this magical season, but it's going to end. The clock's going to strike midnight, and then, okay, we're back to the Bills, Ravens, Chiefs, and Bengals. And we're going to go back to, no, it's not how
doesn't
the
work
NFL
that
works.
way.
But at the same time, I think it's fair that the Patriots aren't the favorite. I think that's fair. I don't think it should be the Bills. No. I don't know who it should be, frankly. I guess maybe the Ravens. Even with the new coach, I'd probably say the Ravens. I'll give them that one.
Yeah, at a 100% healthy team.
Yeah.
When no one's lost a step, which it looks like Lamar's lost a step a little bit, but I give you the Ravens. They just added Max Crosby. I give you the Ravens. Everybody else knows no way. I'm sorry.
So again, the Bills and Ravens are the favorites. It's double the odds for the Broncos and basically the Jaguars. So it's Bills, Ravens, Chiefs, Chargers, Patriots, Texans, Broncos, Jaguars. And then there's a bigger drop off there before you get to the Bengals as the next team.
Okay.
So
I thought the Bengals were right there behind the Patriots.
They're a little further off. So again, Bills, Ravens, Chiefs, Chargers, Patriots, Texans, Broncos, Jaguars. How big is the drop off from the top to the bottom of that group? How big's the gap?
I think once you get past, here's the thing. I'm waiting for the Jags because if they lose, Travis Etienne's a free agent. They got a couple guys on defense that are free agents. If the Jags start losing pieces, I think they take a step back. Denver, I think, is going to be there, but people aren't looking at their schedule the way they looked at the Patriots schedule. Denver got where they were too with basically almost the same easy schedule. But Denver, I'm going to give them credit. They're a good team. They're a good football team. They have a good head coach. Bo Nix seems to be, he's legit. He's a good player. I got Denver there. Honestly, I'd start the odds with the 2 teams that won the AFC Championship game. I got Denver and New England until one of those other teams show that they're back to what they were a couple years ago. I can't see people putting. I'm not saying they got the names, the sexy names, or whatever, but I got Denver and New England still at the top of the AFC. And Jacksonville, if they keep their players and keep building, I'd put Jacksonville at 3 ahead of the Bills and Chargers. But I don't see it with those teams. But I don't think it's a wide gap. I think it drops off when you get to the Bengals because they don't play defense at all. But I think those other teams are pretty balanced. So it's not a big drop off. And Houston is going to be right there again because of their defense and they get healthy guys back. But I think they're really jumbled up really close. But I think Drake May is him. And I think that makes a huge difference when you have an MVP caliber quarterback over some of these other guys.
Let's grab a call here before we hit the break. Matt in Rhode Island on Brandon Ayuk. Matt.
Yeah, no, I don't really understand where he's at. Obviously, there was a lot of weird stuff going on last year with him just not checking in. And, so when I hang up, maybe you just explain to me, where he's at and, with other teams being able to get him. And just lastly, this is kind of a funny thing, but, have you guys followed, the flag football thing with Tom Brady, and he starts talking about Logan Paul? It's just Cerrone, you just said it. What are we doing here? It seems like it's very contrived, and these 2 guys can't get enough of whatever they're doing there. But it's not great. Thanks.
I haven't totally followed that. I know the league's moving back here. I think it was supposed to be in somewhere in the Middle East, right? And now they're going to play it back here. I'm sure you need to promote something. Get Logan Paul chirping about it. That'll do it. The guy's got eyeballs.
Yeah.
The Brandon Ayuk thing, way too much of a risk.
Yeah.
When MIA on the Niners. Like, literally, the Niners said they didn't know where he was.
Yeah.
So,
a lot going on there.
He's coming off it's not your typical ACL tear. It was reported as a very significant tear. I think he tore his MCL as well. His production was down before he got hurt. After he missed that training camp in 2024. It also sounds like he's just going to force his way to Washington because he can play on he's going to get cut. That's the expectation. But the Niners have to pay him. So everybody's going to offer him the minimum. It's just about where does he want to play. He's buddies with Jaden Daniels. They play together in college. He's going to Washington. That's fine. To me, he'd be too big of a risk for the Patriots at this point.
Yeah. Stay away from him. I'm not even doing that. And I'd rather try and develop Kyle Williams than deal with that. I'm not even going to go there. I have a kid here now who's a burner who can get downfield. He's got decent hands. I'm going to work on him and try and turn him into the next Brandon Ayuk. I'm not going down that road. If he'll do that to the Niners, and the kid is from Northern California, if I'm not mistaken, if he'll do that to his hometown team, I'm not bringing him in here and doing all that stuff. No thanks.
He is from Rockland, California. Yeah. It's more inland, but that is Northern California. Good pull.
It's like bringing a kid from Worcester, just abandoning the Patriots. Like, come on, man, we're not doing that. If he'll do that to them, what they paid him, they gave him opportunities, and he still acted like that with that organization. No thanks. I'm out on him. Plus, I don't know if he's going to return back to his old form. So no thanks.
I'm looking at the list of PFF wide receivers. There's a few guys I would take. Pierce, obviously. Yes. Mike Evans, Juwan Jennings, Rashid Shaheed. I guess we don't really count Stephon Diggs here. Romeo Doubs, Wan'Dale Robinson. I don't want either. I'd probably take Tyreek Hill over Brandon Ayuk.
Oh, yes. Over Ayuk, yes.
Yeah.
I take Tyreek Hill.
I forget.
He looks like he at least works hard to stay in shape.
Yeah. Debo? Debo or Ayuk?
No, I'm done on Debo.
Yeah,
After I watched him a few games last year, I'm done.
Probably go Ayuk at that point. I take Christian Kirk. Keenan Allen or Ayuk?
Keenan Allen at least can catch. He's got the hands. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure what's left in the tank with him. I watched him at a celebrity basketball game, and he looked like me out there. So I'm like, nah, man, he might be done. But I did see some stuff on Twitter earlier about, I guess, Romeo Doubs' name being thrown around a lot with the Patriots this morning. So
yeah, I mean, he makes sense. Look, if you don't get A.J. Brown or Alec Pierce and you want that deep threat, that jump ball guy. We were talking about A-Dot earlier. I just had Romeo Doubs A-Dot up here on the computer. I don't know where it went. Here it is. 1.8 yards per route run last year. That's pretty good. Average depth of target at 12.9 yards. Yards per catch, 13.5. He's not Alec Pierce. He's not A.J. Brown. I'd be a little underwhelmed, honestly. Now, if they still had Diggs and you're adding him as a complimentary player, it would make more sense. If they had like Romeo Doubs and Wan'Dale Robinson, Romeo Doubs and Rashid Shaheed, who I get those are different players, but they would fit together. It'd just be in different ways. Like, you could maybe start to sell me on that. It is a drop off, though, from I'd rather have Alec Pierce.
It's crazy to hear Romeo Doubs got 13 yards of catch, and he's still 8 yards behind.
Well, short. 13 and a half. I shortchanged him there. Last year,
but Alec Pierce.
So he had 200 fewer yards on 15 more catches.
That's incredible.
It's nuts.
and real quick, you mentioned Rashid Shaheed.
Yeah.
Had the Seahawks taken a step back? If they lose these guys, the free agency.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Seahawks this is what usually happens. You win the Super Bowl kind of at the apex of the build, knowing that, okay, this was their year. Their window, whether they won that game or not, their window was going to shut. Okay. They were in it for that year. So they're taking a step back. I don't think it, I think it was expected. Kind of like the Eagles last year. Like the Eagles won the Super Bowl, right? And they lost a number of key pieces because it was all kind of building towards that season. And, you hope that they weren't the only team in the league that was in that situation. The Bills are in that situation. It's just the first one that comes to mind. You hope that the year you're building towards, you get the job done. I think the Seahawks were in a year where it was all kind of building towards that, and they were able to capitalize. But, they're going to lose some guys. They're going to lose Kenneth Walker. They're going to lose some of those edge defenders. Probably going to lose Rashid Shaheed, so they'll move on from a couple pieces. They're going to lose probably their 2 corners next to Devin Witherspoon. Woolen, and I'm blanking on the other guy's name, but they're going to have to pay Witherspoon, so you're going to go into the draft for that, and you have to reset. We've talked about this. That's the NFL. Mm-hmm. There's an undercurrent pulling to make the bad teams good and the good teams bad, and you can only fight it off for so long.
Yeah, and I guess one last question I have for you. Free agency hits tomorrow.
Yeah.
Could you see a team that was at the bottom of the league this year in the standings flip their team overnight?
So who's the team
that's going to become? Yeah, exactly.
This is going to be a thing this year. Because last year it was who was this year's Commanders. This year it's who's this year's Patriots. I got one team I'm really looking at, and that is the Titans.
Okay.
I think Cam Ward. Just watching Cam Ward last year, he was better than what the box score showed and what the record showed. Kind of like Drake May. Remember, we kept talking about Drake May was having all these flashes, but they weren't amounting to anything. And we were like, well, is that more about Drake May or more about the team around him? They got a better coach. They put a better team around him. And look at what happened. Right now, I don't think Cam Ward's going to be the MVP, an MVP runner-up next year. I'm not guaranteeing that. We got to see.
Pro Bowl's good enough.
We got to see what they do. But they've made good hires. I like Saleh. I like Brian Daboll. They've got good draft capital. They've got cap space. Let's see what they do. I think they are in a position to do what the Patriots did last year. Let me put it that way. I think they're in a position to do that. They have to actually do it. Frankly, if I was them, I'd be calling Stephon Diggs. But I'll be interested to see. That's kind of the ones. And then the Raiders. I like Mendoza. I think they're probably further away. I don't know that they're getting to double-digit wins, but could they get to 9 wins and compete for a wild card spot? I could see it. But the Titans, I don't know if you had an answer to your own question, but for me, it's
no. I was looking like, okay, who's going to be the one to spend the big money and flip their team around, hitting the draft? Who's the more likely candidate? And of course, who's going to have the easy schedule? And I think the Browns have the easiest schedule in the league this year.
Yeah, but they're still the Browns.
They're still the Browns, and they have a ton of holes. They're still losing pieces, losing players, but. Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious to see who's going to be that team to become the Patriots and go from, because the NFL, like you said, and the reason I thought this question, because you said the NFL is built for the teams at the bottom to come to rise up.
Yeah,
and we've seen the Patriots do that. We saw Washington, and we saw Denver. All these teams that picked those quarterbacks came. The Bears are finally relevant. Who's the next wave? Who's the next team that's on the bottom that's going to turn it around? Could it be the Cardinals? Could it be, like I said, the Raiders? Who's going to be that team that's going to capitalize on the constant shift of the NFL?
That'll do it for us this week. Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff. If you missed any of the show, you can find it on the Sports Hub YouTube page or wherever you get your podcasts. I'll have podcasts all week with Matt Dolph, Patriots Hub podcast. Again, you can find wherever. As free agency news comes out, we'll kind of update, react in real time. We'll also have, of course, plenty of coverage on 98.5thesportshub.com. And we'll be back next week, 3-hour show starting at 8 o'clock for Ryan Garvin and Cerrone Battle. I'm Alex Barth. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you tomorrow. Big one, fun one coming tomorrow, free agency. Big week ahead. Enjoy it, everybody. We'll talk to you on the other side. Bye.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Hi, I'm Patty Staples.
And I'm Paula Salamina. We're business development managers at Blue Sky Restoration Contractors.
Have you experienced property damage? Blue Sky is your emergency